My name is Camila Oliveira, and I was 34 years old when my husband chose money over the woman who had stood beside him for 12 years. The moment he calmly told me that I was holding him back, I realized I had been loving someone who had already replaced me with ambition. Before I tell you what happened next, stay with me until the end, because one decision I made after that conversation destroyed everything he had spent years building. It happened in Sao Paulo, Brazil, on a rainy Friday evening. I had just finished setting the dinner table when Rafael walked in wearing his expensive suit and carrying a folder in his hand. He didn't kiss me. He didn't ask how my day had been. Instead, he placed the folder in front of me and quietly said, "I think it's time we end this marriage." For a few seconds, I couldn't even breathe. I had sacrificed my own career to help him build his construction company from the ground up. I handled paperwork, met clients, worked long nights beside him, and believed every success belonged to both of us. Then he looked at me with complete indifference. "I've changed," he said. "Successful people need successful partners. Love doesn't build wealth. Money does." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply watched the man I loved walk out the front door, believing he had taken everything that mattered. He never imagined that my final decision would soon destroy the empire he believed no one could ever touch. When Rafael left, the silence inside the house felt heavier than his words. I spent the entire night sitting alone in the living room, staring at the framed photos of the life we had built together. Every picture reminded me of a sacrifice I had made so that his dreams could become reality. The following morning, my phone rang. It was Rafael. For a brief moment, I thought he had called to apologize. Instead, he spoke in a cold, business-like tone. "I need you to sign the ownership transfer papers today," he said. "The investors are waiting, and I don't want any delays." Not once did he ask if I was okay. Not once did he mention our marriage. To him, I had already become another document that needed his signature. I quietly opened the folder he had left behind and began reading every page. As I reached the final document, something caught my attention. A clause he clearly believed I would never notice. For the first time since he walked away, I smiled. Rafael thought he had planned everything perfectly. He had no I called my lawyer that same afternoon and asked him to review every page of the agreement before I signed anything. After nearly an hour of reading, he looked at me and quietly said, "Camila, if you sign this today, you'll lose everything. But if you refuse, Rafael's biggest business deal cannot move forward." For a long moment, I said nothing. Part of me still loved the man I had spent 12 years with. I wanted to believe he would come back and realize what he was throwing away. But another part of me remembered every sacrifice, every sleepless night, and every promise he had broken. The next morning, Rafael arrived at my house wearing the same confident smile. "So," he asked, "did you bring the signed papers?" I looked him in the eyes and calmly slid the folder back across the table. "They're not signed." His smile disappeared instantly. "You can't do this," he snapped. "Do you know how much money is at stake?" I nodded. "More importantly," I replied, "do you know how much our marriage was worth?" For the first time since I met him, Rafael had no answer. He walked away furious, still convinced he could fix everything. He didn't realize that within days, the empire he valued more than our love would begin to fall. A week later, the news spread faster than I ever expected. Raphael's investors pulled out of the deal after discovering that the ownership transfer had never been completed. Without my signature, the agreement was legally incomplete, and the expansion project he had spent years preparing collapsed overnight. His company quickly began losing clients. Business partners who once praised his confidence stopped answering his calls. Within a few months, the empire he had chosen over our marriage was falling apart piece by piece. One evening, there was a knock at my door. It was Raphael. For the first time since I had met him, he looked tired instead of confident. He quietly apologized and admitted that he had mistaken success for happiness. He confessed that he had sacrificed the people who truly loved him in exchange for money and status. I listened without interrupting. When he finished, I calmly said, "You didn't lose everything because I refused to sign those papers. You lost everything the day you believed money was more valuable than loyalty." He lowered his head, knowing I was right. I closed the door gently, not with anger, but with peace. Months later, I rebuilt my career as an architect and created a life that belonged only to me. Looking back, I realized the greatest victory wasn't watching his empire fall. It was finally choosing myself.